So we'll be able to look at all these parts and pieces upstairs since we have that unit 1 all taken apart. But down here you'll have, it's called the turbine, or sometimes they call it the runner. And then you have wicket gates here. When the water flows down through the penstock, it'll get to these wicket gates. So when you open up those wicket gates, it'll come in here to the scroll case and it'll turn that runner, which in turn turn this shaft, which will turn our rotor up here.
And that's what generates the power.
That generates the power. Then you have the stator around that. This rotor will induce that voltage onto the stator. And then you'll have your AC voltage going out of here.
So how many of those, that's a rotor? That's what it's called, a rotor?
It's called a rotor, yeah.
So how many of those do you have in this dam?
We have 1 per unit.
And you have 3 units then?
3 units, yep. And they all put out like 18.5 megawatts. And then you'll have, like down here, there's pictures of, you can see the wicket gates down here, and then you'll have the head cover, and this will be like the upper bridge. And there's a lot of protection devices in here because you got a lot of bearings. You got different bearings. You'll have your upper bearing, your thrust bearing, your lower bearing, your turbine bearing down here. So you have protective devices on all of that stuff also. And you have vibration monitoring systems throughout this thing. There's some stuff up here for speed sensing, so we'll know the speed of our unit when it's running. Fixed wheel gate out in the dam. Water will come down through the penstock. It'll start turning the turbine. We'll get up to 150 RPM.
So how did you get into being a supervisor at a dam?
Well, I first my supervisor experience, I guess, would be at the railroad. I was a supervisor at all the trains coming in and out of town. You had pipe fitters, you had guys that drove the locomotives around, electricians, mechanics. So I ended up getting a couple of years of supervisor experience there, and kind of helped out here.
But you started as an electrician.
I started as an electrician, yeah, and then I moved into being a relay tech when I got to a coal-fired power plant. Went through a little assistantship there, and then left the coal-fired power plant because I didn't necessarily like where the coal industry was headed these days. So I took off and went to Hoover Dam and got into hydro there. And from there I ended up out at Shasta Dam, Northern California for 5 years as still a communication instrumentation technician, and came here in 2019 February, and communication instrumentation technician, and it was a year and a half later I got the foreman job here.
What do you think people don't understand, especially right now with power and generation, and why this is so important?
You know, a big part of it I think they don't understand is how the grid works in general, how the power grid works, and why you need these big rotating masses like we have here, like in steam units. It helps for power you through events that you have, something that solar and wind cannot do for you.
Because you need a stable force, and with these you can get stability.
Yeah, you have hundreds of tons of rotating mass inside there. Like I said, it'll help you power through. We can hear faults. It'll bang our units a little bit. We might get some alarms, but most of the time we'll power through them faults. Where solar cannot do that.
Does it concern you where the direction we're going right now?
It does. You know, I've been through a few classes lately where they talk a lot about our power grid, and from my understanding, what they're telling me is our power grid now is the least reliable it has ever been. So yeah, it is a little concerning.
So a dam like this, where people probably don't take it that seriously because it is small, that amount of electricity, that's a big deal.
That is a big deal, yeah. It powers a lot of homes.
So tell me what you guys are doing right now in terms of restoration. So this place was built when, blah, blah, blah.
Yep, the units were built in the early 50s, so they've been running a long time without being refurbished. So right now we are rewinding all 3 of our units. We're starting in on unit 1 right now, and it'll get a new turbine put in it also. But the rewind is a big project going on right now. and we will continue for the next couple of years on the next 2 units. So we're maybe halfway through this one, and first time they've been redone since early 1950. So they ran a long time, but you know, that insulation starts to break down after a while, and we a few years back had a fault, internal fault on the stator on Unit 1, and that got repaired. And as soon as we took Unit 1 down to start the rehab on that, we had the same fault on Unit 3. So they're ended their life. They had a good run.
Well, that is stable. I mean, if you're talking, that's a lot of years. That's like as old. That's a little bit older than me.
That's a long time. I mean, how many years are we talking? 70. You know, 70 years they've been running, and that's a lot longer I think you get out of a solar panel.
So what do you like about your industry, just what you do?